What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you for tuning in. We were just laughing about this is episode 82 during this crazy shit known as a pandemic. And I have Kevin Grossi, who is the chef owner of the Regional in Fort Collins. My friend, good to see you.
What's up? How's it going?
It is going, man. 82 episodes. So I'm still hustling and communicating. It's
awesome.
It's what I was meant to do in this time, at least. So
I love the chefs you got coming on, man. It's cool. Like seeing Chad Clevenger, that was rad. And then Ming Tsai, I'm like, come on. This is great.
You know what's crazy about like having Ming Tsai on the show is he's a celebrity chef, and I joked about it on the show, said, wait a minute, the fucking guy from Simply Ming is like a gangster, because when he was telling stories, he was talking about like getting grimy with dishwashers, and I was like, I love it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, then the day before is like Tajai Cook, which most people have never heard of, yet was one of the most well-spoken, thoughtful, eloquent chefs I've had the pleasure. And so it's like, we can hold space for both. Both are just as important in this moment. So I'm excited about that. And so speaking with you, there's a couple things that are top of mind for me. One is I want to find out what's happening in Fort Collins. So we'll touch on that a little bit for everybody. Two, you traveled the country, and we're looking at American regional food, and that's really what you're doing at the Regional, hence the name, and comfort food. What the hell does comfort food mean? Because in this moment, it feels like we need it more than ever before, and we're taking a lot of pretense and chefiness away and just saying feed people with good products, good technique, and kind of connect people. So I want to start with you traveling the country. For me, that feels like a really cool, interesting place to start. So start with why you felt like you needed to know, and then take us through maybe a couple of the places, a couple of the people you got to interact with through that.
Yeah, I mean, the road trip idea, I mean, I kind of grew up road tripping. Like when we were young, like I had, I grew up in Michigan. My dad was in the automotive industry, and we initially grew up in Michigan, but lived in New Jersey, lived in Pennsylvania, and we had a lot of movement in my dad's Astro van, and we would drive across the country. His brother lived in Colorado Springs, so we actually made our way out to Colorado. So I think road tripping and seeing different parts of the country was such an early influence, and just goofy times with my brothers and sister, and my dad just being a dad, doing goofy things on the road. But then, that influence always was with me for like just getting around and just like, food we would eat and be in the different areas, and, kind of understanding is like, what's so Southwest? Like why, and you start picking that up when you're a kid, you go to, on the East Coast or something like that. You start picking these flavors that like, well, no, you don't see that Southwest on the East Coast. And, growing up in Michigan, the same thing. We go up north, we drive up north, and we go get lake fish, and we fried lake fish and coleslaw and, fried potatoes, just all heavy stuff. But that's where, when I was coming up with the concept, I've been honestly writing a menu for the Regional for years. And it was just like,
apparently since you were a kid, you've been writing this menu, you just didn't know it.
Yeah. And it was all memory. It was kind of like what I dug up was like, it's memory based cuisine. And that style for me was just like, okay, old school would be grandma, and grandma's Mary McMurray's potato salad, and the memory is like, grandma dumping pickle juice into potatoes to the point where they're already so beat up that it's like, it's awesome. I mean, there's so many pickles in it, and it's eggs, and it's just basic, but it's just, to me, it's one of the most delicious things. So, just trying to dig that up and knowing that, okay, cool, my family and what I grew up with, I experienced that style, cornmeal fried walleye or perch, and then potato salad, and a lot of cool summertime stuff. So the road trip, really, when I was writing these menus, I think it was like 2 months or something. I think I was at this weird standstill between leaving Lola and being like, all right, I'm doing this, I'm jumping off, and I still look back and I'm like, what's the drive? Like, I'm like, what was the drive? I just do things. That's kind of my thing in life. I'll just peace out and go, here we go. So the road trip was perfect, but I had a couple months before Avanti happening, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to go on a road trip and just eat. And that's where I just kind of drew on a map and told, well, my wife Liz, at the time girlfriend, and I'm just like, hey, I'm going to kind of like disappear. And then she actually kind of flew to areas because she was working, and she like met me at areas and we would eat together. But I, drove initially, and it was funny because one of my favorite towns in the whole trip was Kansas City. It was like right away. And I tried stopping in the middle of Kansas at times, and I was like, swing and a miss, like it was like, you didn't know what I was going, but it wasn't solely the food I was after. It was a lot of like, what was the culture of the people? So you're talking about names and stuff. Like, I mean, I had awesome, I don't even know her name, but the middle of Kansas, I went to some chicken place, and it was like, the sign was so awesome when you came in. The chicken was great. The lady was just comfortable and cool to talk to. And I don't even know her name. And it was off of I-70, in the middle of nowhere, super hot out. But just kept this journey. Kansas City was awesome. And I did a whole barbecue recording. So every town, I ate so much barbecue, so much fried chicken. It was heavy. Like, I mean, a lot of the areas I went to. But I was doing like recordings of like the differences of the barbecue and what was going on with the flavors and things like that. But I have a secret crush on Kansas City, in particular in their food scene.
All right, let's hover on that now, because I didn't know that we were going to go to Kansas City, but it's funny, the serendipity. Yesterday's guest, Adrian Miller, brilliant writer, right? And we talked about Kansas City, and we geeked out. Right before I moved to Denver, I was in Kansas City. Debbie Gold, who was my chef when I was 23, has been on the show. And so like Kansas City comes up a lot. So let's go there a little bit. Let's talk barbecue. So for you, what are some of the highlights when it came to barbecue?
I think I had a buddy who lived there, and he was like, Oklahoma Joe's was kind of like right off the bat, and that one, go there, and it was like, it was awesome. It was just like, it was great. And
the garage, like, it feels grimy and amazing there, right?
Yeah. And just the fact that like, it's very, it's so organic the way those places are made. Like they're just like, hey, here we go. Not to knock Denver or anything like that, but I feel like we would try to have like, we would kind of recreate in a way where you're buying you're like a brand new pair of Warren jeans. It's just like Kansas City actually wore them and made that whole. So like that's where I see some of those places out there where I was really like, how does this real authentic way of just finding a potential hole in the wall or whatever. But Oklahoma Joe's, there was Gates. I remember meeting my brother at Gates and like walking in the door and just getting yelled at like right away.
Yeah. Yes, man.
Like, wait.
What you want?
And I was like, where are we going? I have no clue where we're going. And that's part of the experience, and Gates, and then Q, blanket on the number, but it was just, I mean, kind of all different aspects. They were just good, and there was something about the vibe in that town. And I'm rolling solo on this trip too. Like I was driving solo on this road trip, and just kind of being that dude, just kind of like, I'm just scoping out. And people are like, what are you doing? I was like, just eating. Just like I've traveled a lot of places in the country to eat, and just cruising by. And that was one where I had super friendly people, across the way, and just asking me kind of like what was going on. And I'm like, yeah, just meeting people and eating and seeing what's up. So
So did you go to Stroud's to get chicken?
I didn't.
Oh, that's good fried chicken. You'll have to circle back to Kansas City. Yeah. And then did you hit any chefy spots? Did you hit Colby and Blue Stem and some of those?
No, the funny thing is about the entire trip, I did not do any chefy spots. It was straight up like, it was barbecue galore. It was, when I get into Tennessee, I was eating a ton of chicken. When I got into Michigan, I was eating, or I should just say Detroit, I went straight to Coney dogs. And, and I had like, the funny thing is originally I'm from out north of Detroit, and it was like, I go to Cincinnati at one point. Cincinnati's a pretty cool city.
Yes.
And we always talk shit on someone else's chili.
Yeah.
Cause I was like born and bred with Coney chili, style, and it was like certain places. And the funny thing about the Coney Island franchise too is like they would just like, there would be Coney Island, but then every town would have their own independent Coney Island.
Mm-hmm.
So we dealt with that. But going to Cincinnati, and I'd sit there eat it, and I was like, go to Skyline, and I'm eating. I was like, what's this cinnamon shit in this chili? I was like, that was just me being prideful. Like it was kind of maybe like, I don't know how people knock each other's chowder from Boston or New York or something, but whatever.
For sure. It's funny. It's interesting, like having that. I was like, man, this is like totally on a different planet. And then yesterday, Adrian Miller's talking about in Memphis, you got to try barbecue spaghetti. I was like, shut the fuck up. What is barbecue spaghetti? It's like, oh yeah, super peppery, spicy, like, you know, ends of rib tips and stuff like that. I was like, that sounds amazing. And at the same time, I'm thinking of Skyline Chili going,
because they do this.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't know about the spaghetti for chili.
We keep our chili on fries and hot dogs, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm into it. And so you're inspired. And once again, you're like going back to childhood memories, just the emotions that are evoked from traveling around, from experiencing new things, new foods, new people. And that's crystallizing in this moment. You're like, it has to represent what it feels like for you. So then take us to that. Now I want to think about what's happening in your restaurant currently and then comfort food. So how are you able to capture that essence when people come to your restaurant or eat your food, that experience, and they haven't been to Tennessee, they haven't been to Kansas City? And then let's start with that. How are you kind of doing that? How is that important in the way that you were creating the concept of the regional in Fort Collins?
It's definitely the hardest thing, especially when people have not been to areas, when you're trying to like introduce them something. Like we did down in, we don't do it as well. We had it on the lunch menu, but things have changed now. But the lobster roll is a great example. And I did have a chance to live in Boston for a little bit of my life and cook out there and traveled up and down to Maine and stuff. But like a lobster roll is one of those items where the first time I got a lobster roll, I think my reaction was, really? like the size of it and like that. I'm like, that's $25. And you know, you're like, and that just getting across with people something that they've never had, you know, so having on the menu, people love it. But then literally if you have a first timer, like we're walking up to them like, have you had a lobster roll before? You know, and then just kind of giving up like, we're going to hold down a little bit through this because this is, you know, this is something that we love serving and we want you to have it. But if I'm going to get knocked on any item on our menu at times, the lobster roll is strictly, it's too expensive. And I was like, dude, our lobster roll is like $18. You know, we're doing a great price on that one too. So yeah.
I can appreciate that, and I think it's important for people to kind of be exported somewhere and feel the presence of, like, again, like you are trying to be a conduit for the experiences that you've personally had, which is why your food's compelling. Like, is it the best lobster roll? I don't know. But is it the best representation of you and your experience of the lobster roll? Absolutely. And that's what I think is important. The more that we can like deliver on that message, I think it means a lot. And so I want to go now to what's happening currently, because currently you can't hold somebody's hand walking them through a lobster roll because they aren't in your space. And I even see, I love the fact that I see your team, some of them walking behind you, they got face masks on. In this moment right now, you and your team are trying to still be compelling in the way that the regional is, but you can't touch people. And now we get into comfort food. Mm-hmm. This idea of comfort food is something that is so ubiquitous, and we don't know what the hell that means. It's a marketing term sometimes in restaurants. Mm-hmm. For you, it's very personal, and right now, it's the survival of your business. So give us your thoughts on comfort food, and let's talk about how your team is delivering on comfort food in this moment right now.
Yeah, it's changed in a way, but for some reason it was just like, it was so natural and easy to put back into that. And it creates, I think because of the times, like when we were, we were kind of like, okay, things are going to shift. We're not going to run our whole menu. Everything's got to really just condense. What do people want at this very moment? And it's like, well, we're all humans and we all want things as well. So think about when you want to go out. That's, I mean, honestly, the epicenter of being a chef is like, what do you truly want yourself? Because that's why who we are, is because we experience food. So I was like, yeah, like our fried chicken's bomb and people love it. And we're just like, it was only on Wednesday. And even the fried chicken's got a whole story behind it. But like, it was one of those things like, let's just offer it every day. And it was just like, we moved up, brought the bigger fryer up to the line and started doing this. And I think even past like some of those items, the biggest thing that I think is developing out of this cuisine-wise is our farms and the name of the farm. So we're like Hazeldale mushroom. Awesome. They're a machine. They were so great to work with, but the more that I kind of like push them and get them to sell more mushrooms, and we fry them, we make sandwiches, we started doing mac and cheese with them, but we're just like, we want Hazeldale to be there because the comfort of them knowing the farm that they're getting their stuff is 4 miles south of us here. So, and then we have a Grossi farm, and coincidentally, this pandemic is happening at a prime farm time. So all these guys.
Hold on a second. I just got the text that the sound's a little wonky. Hold on. We're gonna do a quick recap, people. All right, keep rolling, man. We're in prime time season. I'm into it.
So all the farms are popping up. So we're looking at ways where we're like, well, how could we do, frying something's obviously a very classic comfort style, but like the more that we're pronouncing these names of these farms to everybody around here, I believe the comfort's building even more. Yeah. So it's not necessarily them. They're eating it, they're loving it, everything's great. But the fact that I'm like adding the menus, and they're seeing Native Hill, and they're seeing Raisin Roots, and they're seeing Pumpkin Creek Ranch, and all the ones that we use up north, Hazeldale, they're just like, cool. So we see CSA members that are ordering more often, and we're seeing people being like, who is that? And then they're like reaching out to me being like, oh, I actually got a CSA with Folks Farm, or I got a CSA with Native Hill. And you're like, you see that connection. And when you start getting the warm and fuzzies because you're part of that web, like, it's, to me, I'm like, that takes comfort outside of like the eating aspect of it. It's more of like the camaraderie of the community and the supporting it. And, we're trying to push. And the crazy thing is, well, it's not even crazy, but social media is crucial right now. It's like beyond crucial. And Liz, my wife, she's just crushing it, and putting, doing things that just like tag them, do this, do that. And if I were to do a quick post, she's like, you missed like 5 things you could have done. Yeah. And it's just, and then all of a sudden the farms are sharing it, and then the people eating it, and they're just like, there's just an excitement that we're building that creates comfort because we're all talking about something. We're all talking about our neighborhood and our town.
Yeah, dude, I love that you're saying that, because in the restaurant industry, we've definitely demonized social media, or people being like, oh, these people just keep taking pictures of the food. Like, don't take pictures of it, enjoy it. Or, like we're trying to control their experience because we have a certain expectation of it. And then also on social media, a lot of times you see restaurants just being transactional. Buy this, buy this, buy this. Right. Yet building community, you want to tell the story of the farmer. The food is just the extension of that. It's your team, it's the farm, it's all of that. So I really appreciate hearing that. For your team in the restaurant, being able to keep them motivated, being able to cook food that means something, even though they don't get to interact with people, what's that been like for you, kind of having to navigate that?
The staff has been pretty inspiring to me because they are like they truck through this. They're really like I remember having we had a meeting on the Friday before, which I actually think was like the 12th or the 13th of March. Yep. And it's like we feel the wave coming, and I remember I got everyone in here and I was like, something's about to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I need to make an announcement. And I remember I was like falling with my staff, and I can't personally, like, this was so intense because for me, I have a baby and I have a wife, and we live up here, and we're just like, we got to protect and take care. And I just was like, but this whole staff has got stuff that they got to protect and take care of. So that was so intense. And the transition that everyone did was so great because they knew they're not going to get paid the same. They knew that their hours are going to get cut. They knew so many things were going to change. But the cool thing was that rose to the surface was they were in it for the love of the game and the love of the food and the love of what we did. So you could tell that our culture really just like it kept strong, and they're like, all right, what's the plan? And I'm like, let's go. And I just be transparent. I was like, yo, this plan could change tomorrow for all I know. But they were like, cool, just go. They already know I'm kind of wacky and all over, but they've been really good at just staying focused and being like, what are we doing today? What's this going to look like? So they've been awesome. My chef Chris has been great, and our sous chef. Well, there's a million Chris's that work here, but I got 2 Chris's, and those guys have been kicking ass. And then we started bringing in the line cooks, piece by piece. Everyone's looking a little ragged, like, like, dude, I've been, chilling at home, and now, like, you want to cook? They're like, yes,
please.
You cook. I'm so ready. And then the front of the house has been great, and everyone, keeping it casual, like, just wear a t-shirt and jeans and mask and gloves, and there's a giant gallon of hand sanitizer over there. So, like, we're trying to keep that culture alive. And the funny thing is, it's this transition that everyone's going through is turning us into the new regional. Like, that's we're never going to be what we were. Like, that's not going to be the case. So, like, because of the pride that they had and them rising through this circumstance, like, no one gave up on me. Like, that was the coolest thing, is no one just goes, peace, unemployment, this is great. Everyone was just like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to still be here cooking, even if you tell me no. And looking at the future, we're, designing menus and, like, how do we tweak them? And, there's a lot of good, I think, with the cuisine too, like a no waste style cooking is what we're trying to aim for. So our chefy mentality of what we had from putting dainty things on plates is changing into way more country as we speak, so that's kind of a cool way of, like, the dehydrator is on all the time. It's just that we have 2 of them, and we just keep them going because, like, anything can still be used in a powder form, too. So there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of culture, and there's a lot of just, like, just awesome pride that I'm seeing from this group right now.
I love everything you're saying right now, because not only do I think it's the right move and attitude, I can just see your energy shift when you're like, this is crazy, yet now we're turning into the regional that maybe it was always meant to be. And sometimes, like, what we know of as restaurants, what we came up as, we kind of fall into that framework because it's what we know, it's what's comfortable, it's what we think we're supposed to do. And now you're like, there is no framework. Now you can make it whatever the hell you want it to be. Yeah. And I love hearing the fact that your team just galvanized. Do you feel now, as a leader, as an owner, as a chef, your expectation of yourself as a leader and responsibility that you have is completely different? Like, the team expects something different than you even imagined, because they're there for you in a way that you didn't realize they would have been if the job wasn't the job?
I think right now there's a lot of, like, the leads. Like, the leads are definitely feeling more empowered, and they're making calls, because what we're responsible for right now is not, like, it's different. It's different than a get paid the guest at 204. Like, maybe there's an issue or something like that. Like, you're tackling different projects in general, or just different things where it's like, we need to hear what the issues potentially are. But these guys have done a good job of stepping up and really just taking the empowerment and moving. So I think I'm sensing, like, as we move forward, a little bit more of, like, I'm acting almost more consulting with these crews, and letting them be like, hey, let's just, I know this will work. Like, me personally, like, I'm visioning this, and this is what the guests in this town are probably expecting at this very moment. But then teaching them that, but then letting them kind of, like, hey, let's talk about these menus and move forward. Like, you got some really good ideas with systems or something like that. Like, what can we do to keep moving forward? So there's a lot of, like, I don't know, kind of working side by side together and putting a lot of thoughts on the table together.
Love it. Your interwebs are wonky again. Hold on, bud. We're gonna make it happen, man.
Right on.
Don't worry about it. Par for the course.
Yeah. Gabby made hot dog buns. She just texted me.
Yeah, let's make some hot dogs, man. I'm into that. All right, so I want to touch on a couple of little things real quick before we wrap up here. So Fort Collins, kind of checking in what's happening there. Really, the big topic across the country right now is restaurant dining rooms reopening. What does that look like? There's a big struggle of understanding what happens inside, but outside. So there's a lot of talks of extending liquor license out in the street, being able to have people in parking lots or parking spaces, things like that. Just real quick, what's happening on that front in Fort Collins, or with you specifically?
Same, I just big meeting yesterday with the Larimer County Health Department, the status of what's going on, and then bombarding of emails of, like, here's your application, liquor license this. So I've always been kind of put in my notes. I've always been one of those ones. In my family out of 4 kids, I'm the third, and I always spent a lot of time sitting back and watching my older brothers like cause trouble. And I was able to do it, so I take note from that, and I watch everybody jump in, and I'm like, and I've done this through the pandemic, and that's the big step where it's like their engineering is getting completely crushed with zoning, and then liquor licensing. It's like 2 people back there trying to take on. And Fort Collins got a ton of restaurants, and so all that's going to change. I just think like watching the pandemic and everything go through, it was like, you gotta chill, man. Give these people their time to like do it, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna get announced on June 1st. The problem's not solved on June 1st or whatever potentially is gonna say it is. Like the problem is gonna be solved over the next year, hopefully. And it's just like people that jump the gun and they go after it, cool. But you're teaching all of us who are watching what should be the next step, good or bad. So actually, in long term, I thank both my brothers, Greg and Dave, for being older brothers. It caused me less trouble, so I could actually see like, oh, okay, that's okay. Maybe I won't.
The first guy over the wall usually gets bloody, so I can appreciate that being, not sitting back and being indecisive, but paying attention and then making a decisive move when the time is right. So I like that. All right, one last thing that I want to touch on. You have some of your products in a grocery co-op up there in Fort Collins. Very fascinated with that because I've been talking a long time. I even made an attempt at it to put CPG out there, consumer products, goods, right? Packaged goods, because I think everybody needs to like recognize that your 4 walls, it just will never produce enough revenue. So I think having the ability for your hot sauce or your hot chicken, spice package to be out there. So talk about that when you started to think about putting products outside of your 4 walls.
It's hard, as you know, it's very hard. And it's like, because you think it's like, oh, dude, we make so much hot sauce, like, why not? Yeah. But I think the major drive where it came from, because I feel very spread thin all the time, is our baker. Our baker, Gabby, is such a badass. And she lets me even because I have a pastry background, but she lets me fantasize about things and be like, and then she goes, what do you think of that? And she makes it. And then we're like, holy shit, we should sell it to the co-op. I wonder if they'll let us do it. And then all of a sudden they did. And then it turned from, we had the co-ops and coffee shops. We had a bunch before this all went down. We had a pretty decent amount around town in the bakery world. So now it came back down to just the co-op, and then the co-op started blowing up because it's a store. So that looked good. And then they were allowing me to, we're going to do some other items and things like that. That part started getting tricky because I looked at it from a different perspective as a business owner, being like, I need someone that's their position, I need a production person. And it's like, are we there? Do we have the storage? So it's like the bakery is kind of automatic now, but I'm learning from what we've been doing on that to be like, well, how could we do our hot sauce or we call it the Reg Dredge, which is our gluten-free chicken dredge that Spice Guy blends up for us and stuff. And we're like, how do we get, Reg Dredge to the people? And, awesome. But first things first, the bakery part's been crushing, and the Fort Collins Co-op has been so supportive of us and getting through it. And that's been the weirdest thing I think of all of it is like, we randomly are the victims right now. And as being chefs and restaurant people, it's very hard to be a victim. Yeah. And we're trying to figure this out, but people like the co-op and regulars and people that have just stuck with us, it's a different feeling. I mean, it's just crazy how the support comes out in weird spots too. So
I absolutely love it. I think realizing more and more across the industry that community is what matters, and the redefining the expectations and the lines. To your point, it's like the co-op down the street. It's Hazel Dell 4 miles that way. It's the team that's willing to do whatever it takes. It's not anything else. Right. That's all that it is. So I can really appreciate that. And it's great to really hear that. Kevin, I'm excited to see what you do coming out of this, because I can just tell from your attitude, this is not going to stop you. It's not going to define you. It's going to be an opportunity for you. So we need that kind of attitude and leadership and stuff. So my call to action for you is be vocal about what you're doing, man. Our chef and restaurant community need to hear from you for sure, because I think It's easy to get cynical right now. It's easy to be defeatist right now. It's easy to say, well, back to normal. There is no such thing, yet you have an opportunity to create whatever's next. So that is my ask of you, man. Be vocal, because I want to hear what you're doing and other people need to see. So if you have your front of house guy who's a carpenter and is going to do X, Y, and Z, or cut a hole in the wall so you can get fried chicken out the front door,
we're going to do it.
Do it and let us know about it, because people need to see it. You can count on me, if nothing else, to share that stuff. So I appreciate it, man. Take care of the crew.
You too. Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me on.
All right, brother. Be good. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Later.
Yes, love it. You guys could see it when he got to talk about what happens coming out of this. He propped up. I mean, it's in him to figure shit out. And he mentioned it even before we talked, and we kind of got to it a little bit, but it was so important to him to kind of readdress what he thought the regional was when he was on that road trip, reflecting on being a kid, the way that he's come up through the industry. And it kind of is a little different. You know, he said he fell kind of back into some of the routines of what it was to be a restaurant. And now he's like, it has to be different. And actually it's going to be more like what it should have been or could have been, or what the vision was. And so I love it, because I think more people are going to be able to manifest the industry that they want. And for them, it's going to start with their four walls, and then it's going to expand beyond. Every restaurant listening, CPG, you need to have your products, the amazing dredge that you have, that you're working with Zachary Johnston at the Spice Guys. Like, you need that to become a part of the revenue stream, because the business model of restaurants is so strained. All right. Love it. Kevin, thank you so much. Tomorrow's episode, Chef Chris Hill is on. He's down in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's a media chef icon. The guy is always out there hustling, always out there representing the chef community. So I'm excited to talk with him. He's doing a little podcast press tour, it feels like right now. He's like, I got nothing else to do. Let me get on some shows and just talk and hopefully tell people stories. And I'm excited to having him on. So noon Mountain Time tomorrow. Check into that. All right, everybody. Be good. Appreciate you as always.